Your arrival here was no coincidence. You have been guided to this point since your birth. You were not alone in the challenges you faced and the obstacles you tried to overcome. These processes were the manifestation of the power of the divine plan through you. Soon, the forces before you will be about to crumble. All opposing forces will be forced to retreat as the will of the universe takes over. They have turned against you as well as against the great power that stands with you. The power they resisted will now sweep them away, and their death is imminent. Their restlessness began when their dark anxieties were exposed by your inner light. Your power is a divine influence that shakes their shadows, an energy they cannot understand. Personal disagreements or conflicts of interest were not the only things at stake here. Every challenge you face is a mirror of a greater spiritual struggle. Your mere presence affects them, as if everything they are trying to hide is being revealed by you. The ground they built was only seemingly solid, an illusion that quickly dissolved, but you stepped into the arena they believed they could control. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit the like button. Tell your friends about it and subscribe to receive more inspiring content. When your true purpose was revealed, their souls could not handle the realization that you were a living reflection of the emptiness within them. The opposition you faced wasn't just petty disagreements or outward confrontations. The hostility towards you came from a deeper, unseen source, a malevolent force that sought to extinguish the sheer energy that shone within you. They didn't know who you really were, but the spiritual power of your presence was unsettling them. This interaction was part of an unseen, long-standing conflict rather than a personal rivalry. This deep truth was reflected in your magnificent light, weakening them and removing all their facades. When you came, the divine energy you brought destroyed the darkness hiding within them one by one. They tried to silence you, but the divine power shining on you stopped them in their tracks. They wanted to extinguish the light you carried in every step, but it was a light they could not extinguish. Your difficulties were more than a personal conflict. It was a kind of resistance that reached to the sky and transcended all boundaries. Write the number 333 in the comments to let the cosmos know you are ready. The forces that tried to stop you were weakened when they realized that your cry went beyond this realm. The realization that you had a worldwide mission made them uneasy inside. Their jealousy grew when they realized that your destiny was designed for a realm inaccessible to humans. Their deeper inner turmoil stemmed from their inability to embrace God's uplifting power over you. Whatever they had accomplished, your journey was part of a much bigger plan. Their eyes cannot comprehend how you overcame every obstacle in your noble mission. Every opportunity that comes your way and every benefit you reap becomes a prism reflecting their own failures. In their deepest pits, they have lost their souls trying to measure your successes. They never understood that everything in your life was planned in a greater way. They opposed you in the hope of blocking your ascension, but in fact, their opposition made you stronger. Every challenge you faced along the way gave you the opportunity to move forward. Every obstacle you overcame brought you closer to God's purpose, even when they wanted to pull you back. Every challenge you faced took you to a new height, to a power they could not comprehend. This unknown reality drove their hearts deeper into darkness, and what they saw as obstacles became stepping stones for you. As the chosen one, the grace that shone upon you fueled their jealousy and prevented them from seeing that human efforts cannot thwart a divinely inspired plan. Some plotted in private, murmured in secret places, twisted facts, and tried to undermine you because they were powerless. But they did not understand you at all, because they were fighting not only against you, but also against the divine power that stands with you. Their insidious plots disappeared like the mist that evaporates with the first light of the morning. Their desires paled in the face of your divine power. Instead of killing you, their plans have made you stronger at every step. In the sunlight of your life, the shadows of their evil have completely vanished. In reality, they were fighting against a divine cause rather than a human being. By entering 111, you can claim these benefits that will lead to more opportunities in your life, such as professional success, financial success, business success, health, and all the desires of your heart. The power they were fighting against was crushing them more and more with every step they took. Every move you made was being watched, so there was no need to turn around and protest. Every ominous word they muttered about you and every action they took was already recorded on camera. Because of the size of the power behind you, rather than your strength, every trap they devised and every cunning plan to discredit you was doomed to fail from the start. It was clear who was plotting your rise, and now they would begin to realize that the game was going in a completely different direction. Those who waged war against you would be forced to bow to the overwhelming power against them. All the traps they had planned backfired. As they tried to weaken you, every tactic they devised to do so collapsed, one by one. God's hand shaped your destiny and made you stronger. Now they could see how strong the opposition against you really was. Faced with this divine command that they could not resist, they would have been forced to retreat in despair and embrace the truth. They could no longer deny that you are surrounded by divine grace. Write Amen in the comments to ask for divine help. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and forward this message to all your friends whom you want to be in God's presence and under the protection of angels. Nothing can reverse God's irrevocable choice for you. It is promised. Those who oppose you will not simply walk away or retreat. No, in the end, they will have to submit. Once their jealousy only served their own downfall, but today, God is using that same power to lift you up. Even though they may have seen the jealous looks and unkind words directed at you as a burden or an attack, God is using it for your growth. Every jealous look and harsh word has shaped you like a hammer, turning you into a strength they could never have imagined. In reality, their destructive efforts were a divine test to strengthen and purify you. In retrospect, every action they took became a building block that God used to raise you to a level they could never reach. Every criticism and uncertainty weakened them and raised you to a level they could never reach. They did not realize that their jealousy was actually a mirror reflecting their own inadequacies and the spiritual abundance that was upon you. The suffering caused by their attempts to hurt you actually hastened their own demise. They had no idea what they were really up against. Your strength came from God's help for you. Their jealousy became a tool to prepare you for exaltation. Their opposition only strengthened your ascent, just as stones cannot stop a spring gushing from deep in the earth. Every difficulty and setback did not stop you. Rather, it gave you more momentum and helped you achieve greater victories. Every obstacle they put in your way became a chance for you, and every action they took to stop you became a step that accelerated your progress. Their jealousy became part of your journey to heaven. Their efforts to resist you were futile, like weakened hands rowing against a great river. Their opposition to you increased your blazing strength, like the fire of the wind strengthens the flames. Every step they took, not realizing that they were setting themselves up for failure, made you stronger. While men were weaving their plans in shadowy recesses, God was plotting in the highest reaches of the heavens. To surrender to you and realize the glory of the divine power behind you. Those who tried to bring you down would now have to kneel in despair. Your Heavenly Father is opening the door of blessings for you. So if these words are for you, enter 707. This is a world where not only your victory, but also the sacred word finds its place. What you perceive is more than just a material gain. You are the chosen one. In the spirit world, this marks the beginning of a new life. God is bringing everything back into balance and showing the world that you have always been chosen to rule, and that you are not just involved in a power struggle. This divine balance guarantees not only that you will win this mission, but also that you are the one who deserves it. Those who tried to stop you have discovered that the hand of God has already seen and documented every action they have taken. Each and every one of them has been seen by God, and now divine justice is upon us. If war is declared against a chosen individual, it will have terrible repercussions. They would soon learn what that meant. There was no escaping this conflict. To stand against them was to stand against God. Indeed, their arrogance and stubbornness served as warning signs of their own demise. Every time they tried to block someone exalted by God, they lost. No matter how much they tried to deny it, they had to face the truth. Every move they made and every goal they had was being recorded by the hand of God. God's wrath now hung over them like a shadow. When they waged war against you, they were really fighting the greatest power in the universe. The responsibility was too heavy for them to bear. They were weakened by their attempt to go against God's unchanging will. Once they realized that they were fighting against a divine order rather than a human being, they were forced to their knees in despair. God was charting a wider course than they had planned. Their battle was not merely earthly, it was a divine confrontation, and God's justice was now exactly where it was supposed to be, inevitably and decisively executing its judgment. The divine order is designed for chosen beings like you, who have a sacred mission as well as an unshakable strength within. We don't just conquer obstacles, we displace and eliminate them so that they never arise again. The strength of David's resistance to a narcissist and his ability to overcome all challenges was the inspiration for this video. You will explore contemporary manifestation techniques and enter a system that will greatly increase your current power after discovering the secrets of the inner order. God has brought you to this point so that you can take back everything that has been taken from you. If you are new to our channel, we sincerely welcome you to subscribe and become part of our community of hope. As a subscriber, you will join a community sharing inspiration and uplifting messages. Before their very eyes, every lie they have woven in the darkness suddenly unravels and disappears. The webs they have cleverly woven and the plans they have devised have now fallen into their own trap. They intended to hurt, humiliate, and disgrace you, but their plan was doomed from the start. They built the obstacles to emphasize their own losses rather than to prevent your growth. And now they are crumbling. This is not because of your authority, but because of the noble will they dare to oppose. There is nowhere else for them to hide. The shadowy nooks where they hid their plans no longer exist. In their attempts to harm you, they have unwittingly imprisoned themselves. At every step they trap themselves more and more, and now they see that the order they created is crushing them. All their plans have been foiled by the hand of God protecting you. Every difficulty they put in your way has turned into a stone that helps you win. Every action they have taken against you has backfired, and now they cannot stop crumbling as you flourish. The collapse of their order is inevitable. All their lies and whispered schemes are now working against them and turning into traps that surround them. They have built fences, but they have also made mistakes that strengthen your freedom. They will see you rise as they follow the path to their own destruction, because God's plan will always triumph over their cunning schemes. They will be surrounded by the spiritual power that is constantly on your side. In fact, the traps they devised to bring you down have prepared the way for your ascension. Unexpectedly, every action they took backfired. They are trapped in the labyrinth of their own creation, and now they don't know what to do, as everything they put together is slowly disappearing. When they attacked you with anger and jealousy, you grew stronger. They believed they could imprison you, but in fact, their attempt only made the divine grace shining on you more evident. They sharpened with every baseless accusation and rose with every action to kill you. Their failure was evident from the beginning, for they were against both you and the divine plan that controlled you. You didn't need to defend yourself or say anything. You just needed to remain resolute because their downfall was now obvious. As their influence slipped away, their reputation began to crumble beneath the crashing waves like sand castles crumbling. They will watch helplessly as everything that was built on deception and deception crumbles one by one under a hardening tide. With every step, they will sink deeper, and you will rise higher. They will fall into their own trap as their twisted schemes become paving stones for you. Because God's power is always more powerful than their lies, their schemes have only served to accelerate your rise. They destroyed themselves, so there was no need to declare war. Now, as they slowly fade away, you shine the brightest, for victory is always guaranteed by divine intent. Forces beyond their control are now shattering what they once painstakingly created. The words, the connections, and the lies they concocted. As God stripped them of their authority, the places they proudly occupied quickly emptied, and they were suddenly thrust into the heart of their own destruction. This collapse is not silent, as if the earth is crumbling beneath their feet. Rather, it is relentless and loud. The influence and power they once wielded is being eroded, leaving only a thin ghost of their existence. Now, those who tried to pull you down must see you rise. They will watch you disappear. Now, every lie they concocted and every plan they devised is crumbling before their eyes. The world around them will no longer react to their previous influence, and the names they so boldly repeated will now exist only as echoing memories. It is now only a memory of what once gave them power. This success is the result of God's might, not yours. They have no choice but to watch you rise as He lifts you higher. They understand the new path that is opening up for you, and all the plans they devised suddenly turn into nothing. They can only watch as every trick they have ever pulled falls apart in front of them. Every influence that once elevated their reputations now deserts them, leaving only broken alliances and crushed hopes in their wake. Their world goes silent while God elevates you. Your ascension is inevitable, and they will now see that you have risen to a level beyond their control. Their death is certain as they have never been grounded in reality. Their pride and cruelty was the only foundation of the building. Those who wanted to see your death must now witness your ascension. If you think that love and faith have the capacity to overcome any obstacle, subscribe to the channel and write Amen. The only potential outcome was your ascension, and the stage was set for them to be left behind. God not only silences their voices, but also completely destroys all their influence. They are standing among their own wreckage, because those who tried to stop you unwittingly contributed to their own demise by using your ascension. Your victory is a living demonstration of God's might, not only for you, but in front of your enemies. It is not just a coincidence. Rather, it is part of God's great plan for you. Everything that they used to harm you eventually became the catalyst for your ascension. This is God's way. In addition to keeping you safe, He uses their disobedience as a prop for His glory. Every trap they set became a stepping stone for your success. These are the steps God uses to lift you up. Their loss is more than a simple outcome. It is a chapter in your story characterized by your triumph and their failure, and serves as a real-life divine reminder that nothing can defeat God's chosen ones. This is not your struggle, so there is no need to take revenge. God has always stood up for you, and the implications of this are now clear and indisputable. Amidst the chaos they have caused, those who sought to destroy you and believed that their words and actions could silence your voice are no more. They are now living examples of the invincibility of God's protection. Anyone who thinks of opposing you in the future will be warned by their downfall. Not only are they falling, but they are showing how God is raising up and protecting His people, proving that no one can oppose that plan. Your ascension was not something you accomplished on your own. God does not work in secret. Instead, He exalts you publicly, enlightening you in the face of the skepticism of others. This is not just a victory bestowed upon you, but a clear affirmation of God's sovereignty over you. Those who have been trying to block your path must now see your gradual ascension. Every action you take and every climb you make will be seen by them. They will realize that every trap they set to harm you is actually what is winning you over. The plots to bring you down will become shining examples of God's grace, and His control over you will grow more and more each day. This ascension has significance far beyond a single victory. God is making His power manifest through you. It is an opportunity not only to silence your opponents, but also to show that those who follow the holy path are untouchable. Your ascension will be a public demonstration that God is with the people under attack. As God raises you up, He will silence your opponents. He will destroy the plans of those who dare to rebel. This ascension is a journey in which God is using you not just as a reward, but as a demonstration of His power. Those who try to block your path will see both your success and God's special power. Their failures and your successes will become the defining marks of your story. Now that you stand at the very heart of God's glory, you have become a living example of His indisputable power and are much more than just a conqueror. A warning from God to those who plan to resist chosen ones like you in the future: their fall is more than just a loss. You are being exalted by God in a very transparent and difficult way. Enemies and skeptics will see all their plans fail and will be unable to say anything when the power that defended you comes into play. Despite their valiant attempts, His ultimate authority will be proclaimed at every stage of your ascension. This is a strong and unwavering warning, not only to those who plot against you, but to the whole world. For those who dare to fight against you are not only fighting against you, but against the holy will of God. Those who dare to block your way are in fact challenging God's glory and God's plans. But God's power and His faithfulness in defense of His people will always prevail. The defeat of your enemy is tangible proof of God's unwavering power to defend His chosen ones. It is not just the outcome of a conflict, but a clear demonstration of God's divine plan. Their defeat proclaims to the world that conspiracies and plans against God's will are futile and fruitless. It is an unforgettable lesson that no one should defy God's will, but rather accept His sovereignty. It is not only a victory, but also a declaration of an impenetrable boundary to God's people and God's will. This limit is a clear and unequivocal warning to all. To stand against God's chosen ones is to prepare one's own end. Subscribing to this channel, liking and sharing the video will allow you to join our group and enjoy these benefits. Have faith and write, "I do." God will reward you. God has chosen you and placed His mark on you. This divine seal reminds anyone who dares to oppose you that the consequences will be severe. Every step aimed at you only hastens your enemy's own weakness and their own end. For every attempt against someone protected by God's grace results in God's direct intervention. Those who oppose His will are doomed to failure in the testimony of history and eternity. It is clear to all what happened to your enemies. Their arrogance has led them to disaster, and they have shown by their own defeat how futile it is to attempt to defy God. This defeat has become not only an individual lesson, but also a divine reminder for all humanity. For God's faithfulness and power to protect His people has once again been clearly demonstrated. In the midst of these events, you become a symbol not only of victory, but of God's glory, power, and unchanging justice. This process not only defeats your enemies, but also proclaims to the whole world God's absolute authority and determination to defend His chosen ones. This victory is a powerful reminder of the inevitable end that awaits those who stand against God's will. God's will can never be thwarted. His plan always prevails. And you, as God's chosen messenger, are a living witness to this truth. One by one, their secret plans are coming to light, and every scheme they have devised in the darkness is melting away before God's light. All those who might think of opposing you in the future tremble with fear, seeing the consequences. How quickly rejection of God's chosen ones leads to downfall is a fact known to history and to those who have witnessed God's will. That is why their steps tremble with fear, and their courage fails them, even as they contemplate taking a step. Every attempt they make reveals once again their own weakness and how unshakable God's power is. For God's protection is like an indestructible fortress that surrounds you and that no enemy can penetrate. Your very existence is now a proclamation, an announcement. Do not touch my chosen one. This declaration proclaims not only God's promise to protect His faithful servants, but also the unlimited power of His justice and will. But it is not a matter of revenge or retaliation in the eyes of man. God's intervention goes far beyond bringing enemies to their knees, to be a shining display of His majesty, power, and glory. It is part of God's great plan that those who face you will not only be defeated, but that this defeat will become an opportunity to show the world the true power and sovereignty of God. For these victories are not just your privilege, but God's message to all humanity. Every move they make against you reveals more powerfully God's sovereignty and protection. Their every failure makes it clear that God's will is impossible to resist, and that all the powers of this world are nothing against His power. You become an instrument of God's glory. The way God protects you, defeats your enemies, and glorifies you is actually a message to the world. God's will is unstoppable, and opposition to His chosen ones will only result in defeat. But the ultimate purpose of these victories is not only to defeat your enemies, but also to open their eyes and the eyes of the world to the reality of God. For God's power, beyond punishment, invites people to see His glory and love. In this process, your presence and standing reflects the greatness of God's glory and power, not just the achievement of an individual. You shine like a beacon, chosen and protected by God. As your opponents are defeated, your victory becomes a tribute to God's name. For in the end, all things exist for His glory and sovereignty. Through you, God declares not only His faithfulness to you, but also His judgment on all humanity. If this message resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe, and tell others about it. We are very grateful for your help. No matter how meticulously they plan their schemes and plots, they are powerless before the divine power behind you. This shows that no army, no authority, no power can resist God's will. When God chooses someone to be His partner, those who disagree with Him are scattered like dust in the wind. Their power is destroyed by God's decision. Your victory is not just a human achievement, but a clear demonstration of God's power. God's hand is seen in your success. His name shines brightly in every step of victory. The defeat of your enemies is more than a single event. The presence of a higher power distorting reality and reshaping circumstances to fit God's plan is evident in every aspect of your life. It is the work of an unlimited power that transcends human reason, that rules the order of the universe and ensures that all things proceed according to God's sovereign plan. As powerful and impressive as the powers of the world may think themselves to be, in reality their power is as fleeting as the morning mist that evaporates in the heat of the light. They are based on an authority that cannot last, because its source is not God. Even their own power is in the hands of God and serves His will, though they do not realize it. Their presence and their efforts are a chosen warning, not only to you, but indeed to the whole world, that God's will is unstoppable. Through their actions, God reveals His power and the glory of His judgment. Their resistance to you ultimately reveals the greatness and righteousness of God's plans. Every step taken to weaken you becomes another example of God's faithfulness and protection. For those who stand against God's will ultimately fall victim to their own arrogance and weakness. In the future, those who oppose you will not only have to face you, but they will be engaged in a conflict they cannot win. This conflict will expose their weakness, not only physically, but also spiritually. As God has said before, no matter how hard they try, they will fall as quickly as a rootless tree falls in the wind. Everything that is their foundation will be destroyed by the power of God. Your victory is not just a personal victory, but a glorification of God's name and sovereignty. His faithfulness, protection, and power are the foundation of your success. For this victory is not yours, but God's. The only true King is God, the Creator of the universe, and those who stand against His will, no matter how great they may seem, are ultimately doomed to fail. In the process, your patience, faith, and devotion to God will be a light to the whole world. Those who follow you will see the power and love of God in your life, and will have the opportunity to mend their ways, because your life has become a concrete example of God's sovereignty and His promises. Your life is a living example of God's omnipotence and faithfulness. His unlimited power and unchanging love shine through you, and this becomes a testimony worth seeing in every circumstance. The powers of the world move forward with overconfidence in their own might and intellect, but they fail to realize that their power is as fragile as a playing card shaking in the wind. The authority and power they think they have is actually borrowed, and every moment they don't realize this brings them one step closer to loss. Every move they make against you reveals how hollow and weak their foundations are. For it is a foundation of sand, and no matter how hard they try, it will crumble even faster. Without God's grace and favor, no matter how many armies they gather, No matter how loudly they shout from the rooftops, they are as dust blown away by a mighty storm. They are like a creature that vanishes with the blowing of the wind and leaves no trace. But you stand firm, not because you rely on your own efforts or personal strength, but because you are rooted in the unchanging and eternal reality of God's promise. What is required of you is simply to remain steadfast in your faith in God and in the certainty of His Word. For God's promises are more solid than the foundation of the universe. There is no force that can resist His will, because everything is part of His plan. You are a living manifestation of this truth. In every difficulty and in every attack, you stand firm under God's protection. Even when their anger and power is directed against you, they are one step closer to their own doom. For those who try to stand against His power and justice are doomed to be crushed under their own weight. You, on the other hand, continue to shine like a beacon in God's hand, unbowed in the face of adversity, shining in the darkness, a monument of His faithfulness. Don't forget to subscribe to show us your love, and write Amen if you agree with this message. This is your chance to be part of our community. You are untouchable, not because of anything you have done, but because of the hand of Almighty God upon you. Every setback and every attack only brings you one step closer to the victory predestined by heaven. When they oppose you, they are not fighting against a mere human being, but against the divine design, which they can never defeat. God Himself has guaranteed your victory, so their downfall is guaranteed. Every step you take, you carry the weight of His glory, unshakable, unbreakable, and unstoppable. Your ascension will be unquestionable, and all who see it will know that God has raised you up for His glory. We have come to the end of this video. If you found value in this message, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us reach more people and spread this empowering message. Join our community, and let's continue this journey together. See you in our next video. Goodbye.